everyone, welcome back for a new round of box office predictions. Yes, this video is coming at you earlier in the week because bright and early Thursday morning, I am off to the North Bend Film Festival, so I can't do box office predictions then, but you guys know I don't like missing a week, so I'm bringing you this video early. Kicking it off with our Fantasy Movie League recap. We had 19 players in the Predictions with Perri League get that perfect lineup last weekend. Here are all the names. You can see them up on the screen right now. As always, I must congratulate all of you. I wound up, I think, in 85th place, which I'm pretty happy. Usually, I am fine when it's double digits. I like to get at least there. So, a solid week at Fantasy Movie League. As for my top 5, my rankings were all over the place. I only went 2 for 5, but my numbers were fairly close, which I'm pretty happy with. Hobbs and Shaw topped the charts again, making $25.3 million. Then the number 2 spot was the spot that really messed up my rankings, but I was very excited to see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark exceed expectations and take $20.9 million for its first weekend out. Then at number 3, we had The Lion King, which made another $20.2 million. The 4th spot went to Dora and the Lost City of Gold, which opened up with $17.4 million. And then finally, at number 5, it was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with a fairly minimal 41.8% drop, letting it take another $11.7 million. Rolling into the new round of predictions now, I do have to warn you up top. Again, this video is coming at you early, so I don't have all the data I would like. It does feel a little bit like I'm winging it here, so do keep that in mind. You guys know I don't really like the doom and gloom mentality, but when we have 2 weekends in a row with 5 new wide releases, you're gonna see some busts at the box office, and I think this weekend is no different. Another thing making this weekend even more challenging is how many movies I think are gonna fall between the $5 and $15 million range. It kind of does feel like the top 5 rankings this time around are a little bit of a crapshoot, which makes me nervous, but I'm gonna do my best here. And starting out, one movie that you might be surprised is not in my top 5 this time around. It's The Angry Birds Movie 2. I do think it was a smart decision to move up that movie's release date to Tuesday, but I do think that decision is what led to it falling out of my top 5. In order to figure out how much it might make, I'm looking at Romeo and Juliet and Sherlock Gnomes. So that first movie in the franchise, it opened up with $25 million, and that then paved the way to the sequel, which then only opened up with $10.6 million. I do have a feeling this Angry Birds franchise could be heading down a similar path. So if Angry Birds sees a similar divide after that first movie opened up with a whopping $38 million, we could be looking at something like a $16 million total for Angry Birds 2. The thing is, I think that $16 million is for, excuse me, Dewey, is for the Tuesday through Sunday run, not the 3-day run. With a 3-day run, I have a feeling it's only making $8 million. So that kicks it out of the top 5 for me. Moving into the movie that I actually think is going to take the number 5 spot, though, that is where I have Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Yes, this movie did exceed opening weekend expectations with that $20.9 million start. What has me a little concerned with this one, though, is the C Cinema score. I want to go right back to the movie Truth or Dare with this one. With Truth or Dare, that one wound up opening with a little less than what Scary Stories took, and it had a higher cinema score, but still, it wound up with a whopping 58.3% drop in weekend 2. I do think it's sensible to think that Scary Stories could be heading towards a similar big weekend 2 decline. The thing is, I don't know, I'm just getting the feeling that the buzz for this one is strong, and with all the competition out there right now, I still do think that this one is having a more upwards trend compared to the others. So I don't want to give it that big of a percent change. I think I'm just going to slash its opening profits in half, which means I've got Scary Stories coming in at number 5 with another $10.5 million. Moving on to my number 4 pick now, that is where I have The Lion King. So no, in weekend 4, The Lion King didn't see its percent change come down quite like what happened with Aladdin in weekend 4, but with Aladdin, from weekend 4 on, it had rock bottom percent changes. So keeping that in mind, I do want to see the Lion King weekend 4% change come down, even if it's just a little bit. So let's say I take last weekend's 47.5% dip and just bring it down to 45%. That still means the movie is making another $11 million this weekend. Making our way over to number 3 now. That is where I have Hobbs and Shaw, and in order to figure this one out, I am looking at all 3, Fast and Furious 6, Fast 7, and also The Fate of the Furious, because all 3 of those, their percent change trends point towards the same thing with Hobbs and Shaw this weekend, and that is its percent change from last weekend, that number coming down. And I am considering that those movies open far bigger than Hobbs and Shaw, but all I think that means this weekend is that the amount the percent change is coming down is just a little less, but I still think it's coming down, not as much as, let's say, Fast and Furious 6, which saw its percent change come down like 20%, but I do think it's very reasonable for that 57.9% dip from last weekend to come down to about 52%. That would mean the movie is making another $12 million. Next up at number 2, that is where I have one of our newcomers of the weekend. It is 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. Admittedly, I didn't have high hopes for this one earlier on, but then I started to read the projection reports and it gave it something like an $11 to $14 million range. Didn't seem too far out of the realm of possibility for this one. So I do think that was enough to kind of nudge it above Hobbs and Shaw on my charts here. Thinking back to another survival horror thriller that came out this year, we had Crawl. That movie managed to open up with $12 million without the strongest marketing push. So given that, I do think it's possible for 47 Meters Down, Uncaged to earn something similar, especially when that first movie opened up with $11 million. Who knows how many people discovered that movie on DVD, VOD, you name it. So I do think it's possible for it to creep up a little bit, and if that's what winds up happening, I think this new movie could wind up making $12.5 million this weekend. We have arrived at the top spot, and admittedly, I think I am taking a big risk with this one this weekend because number 1 on my list is going to Good Boys. I am not the biggest fan of this first comparison I am about to make, but if I look at another R-rated comedy that hit theaters in August, it brings me to the Happy Time Murders. That one opened up last year with $9.5 million. I think that is the floor for Good Boys. I do think it's going to come in much higher than that because another movie I want to take a look at right now is another R-rated comedy with a high school spin, and it is the movie Blockers. That one, even though the weekend it opened up, it was also going up against A Quiet Place, still made $20.5 million. I think that is the ceiling for Good Boys. A ceiling it might not be able to hit, but I'm hoping word of mouth helps this one because I saw it. It's a lot of fun. So I do think that Good Boys is going to wind up coming closer to Blockers than it will Happy Time Murders, and I'm going to go with the higher end of the projected range for this movie and say Good Boys is opening up with $15 million this weekend. Guys, that brings us to the recap portion of our show right now. Good Boys is my number 1 with $15 million. 47 Meters Down, Uncaged has taken the 2 spot on my list with $12.5 million. Then I have Hobbs and Shaw coming in at number 3 with $12 million, followed by The Lion King at number 4 with $11 million, and finally, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, rounding out my top 5 with $10.5 million. That felt like a really big episode of box office predictions, and I'm so happy I managed to squeeze it in before North Bend. If any of you are in the North Bend, Washington area, do come check out The Witching Hour Sunday at 10:30 a.m. It's going to be a great live show. I hope to see you there. Before I say goodbye, reminders for you guys. Lock those Fantasy Movie League lineups and also put your top 5s in the comment section below. Curious to know what you think because, again, this weekend feels like a giant toss-up. Anyone could wind up coming out on top with this list. Before I say goodbye also, it's Patreon shout-out time. We've got a great group of individuals here because all these guys I'm about to name are on my G-Chat tier, and if you saw my tweet last weekend, I really love this G-Chat option here. It's just so great to get to know you guys, talk movies with you guys. Some of you have me picking your brains about fantasy football right now. Big shout-out goes to Grady, Seth, Tony, Neil, Rick, and James. As always, a huge thank you to you guys. It's so important to me to have you part of the campaign. I really enjoy our chats, so thank you for signing up at all, and thank you for sticking with the campaign. Means a lot to me, as do all of you watching this video out there. Before you go, don't forget to like and share the video, and then tune in next week to see how we all did on these box office predictions.